NEPM's podcasts are funded by Armbrook Village Senior Living in Westfield, with support services designed to help seniors age in place, including a Compass Memory Support Neighborhood. More at armbrookvillage.com.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, a one-man production having its second run in the Gem of the Valley. We'll talk with playwright and actor Jay Sefton about his piece, Unreconciled, running now through July 14th at Chester Theatre Company.
And we'll talk to Nancy Cohen, the NEPM reporter who has been covering the subject matter behind the play, Clergy's Sexual Abuse.
We know that's heavy, but we hear tell the play is also light and full of heart and humor. But fair warning, we will be talking about some of the heavy things later in the show.
Indeed, but we'll also talk about space Legos with Mr. Universe, Dr. Salman Hameed.
If you step on a space Lego, does it still make you scream?
Not sure. I should be less surprised that Lego went out over IKEA for the Great Space Building Bidding Initiative of 2024. But first, more theater.
Listen closely. Neither of you are who you believe you are. Who your companion sees when looking your way, and the connection you believe you share, are singular shapes and separate colors from one another.
Amidst all the wonderful tumult that we experienced during the Solid Sound Music Festival at Mass MoCA, there is still contemporary art happening in all of the galleries. And one of the newer exhibitions that is available is called Where I End and You Begin. What's your name?
John Bechtold.
Wait a minute, aren't you the performing arts director at Amherst Regional High School and Middle School?
Indeed I am, Monty.
Your name has been thrown around a lot on our show.
Yes, it has.
Every time we go and do a piece about theater.
Don't you teach the Deerfield Academy Summer Arts program?
Indeed.
And what's your name?
Hi, I'm Allie Ross.
Hey, didn't I see you in some of John Bechtold's productions at the Shea Theater? And don't you teach at the Boston Conservatory?
Yes, I do. I teach in the theater division. I'm an associate professor there. I teach all kinds of contemporary theater.
Tell us about what this is, Beck.
Sure. This is a two-person audio experience that's going to take you through a portion of the museum over the course of 35 minutes. You are synchronized to your companion in ways that will become more apparent to you as you go. It's a bit of a surprise, so it's one of those things you don't want to tell too much story ahead of time, but suffice to say it is about the connections between you, other people, and the world around you.
Now, I had experienced this once already, but this is your first go, please.
Yeah, I have no idea what to expect.
Are you ready?
No, but we're going to do it anyway.
All right.
That's the spirit.
We're going to send the two Leos together who've never done it before.
Woo! Mutual Admiration Society.
One of which is my son Enzo. My other son Pax and I have done it before, but we're going to switch roles.
Well, then let's do this up. Monty, that means you're going to be track B. And then...
Don't you think Bechtold should have been track B and Allie should have been track A?
Hey, thank you for that.
I have no comment.
So you're giving us a set of headphones and an iPhone.
This is correct. These are issued devices because they are specially set up to take advantage of the software we're using to run the show. You're going to get this cute little bag. Why don't you figure out how you want to wear it first? And they're going to hand you this phone and these headphones. Everything's on, but we're not going to use them just yet.
Enzo, you've done a lot of immersive theater work with John Bechtold over the years, so you kind of know what to expect.
A little bit, but I don't know.
Who knows? You were in a production that John Bechtold created for downtown Amherst that used the poetry of Emily Dickinson, but took you through all the nooks and crannies of North Pleasant Street and beyond in the Emily Dickinson family campus, etc. So you actually acted in that.
I did.
Do you remember your poem? I'm nobody.
I'm nobody. Who are you? Is that one?
Yeah, I do.
Are these spatially, sonically, like they have sound in space, these headphones?
They're noise canceling, and the quality of the sound that you'll receive will relate to the spaces around you. Yes. Yes.
I saw the movie 32 Sounds with headphones like this.
Yes, that was wonderful. Yes.
And with the dude who made the movie and the awesome person from La Tigra who did all of the sound at Big Ears, but it was in a theater, and like the way that sound ends up hitting you in these is like so surreal. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Worth sharing that piece about those composers with you.
Yes, exactly.
Worth noting that the composer of the music for this piece is...
One Sam Perry of Turner's Falls, Massachusetts.
And from the band Cloudbelly. just played Green River Festival and has a newish album out.
And Sam deserves a big shout out here. Not only is he this stupidly wonderful musician in Cloudbelly, and please go see them, but he also scores and writes soundtracks in a stunning way. And the work on this piece is all soundtrack, environment-based music that was totally in responses to the spaces around Mass MoCA that they're so unique. And so Sam's footprint is literally now all over the museum.
All right, let's send the first batch out.
All right, here we go.
We're heading towards the Salle Lewitt in the tunnel that takes you there that's already filled with incredible sounds from, I think, Room Full of Teeth. Sounds like a Geiger counter, but that's just a noise coming from one of the hidden speakers in the tunnel. Okay, we're right outside the Salle Lewitt.
And we're going to go right over here. You'll see these floor stickers around. There'll be gentle visual aids, but really listen for the directions in your ears. Yeah, but they'll be there to guide you if needed. You're going to hear 3 chimes. At the top of the 3rd chime, you're just going to press pause so you can really sync.
And they're off. Enzo, a seasoned professional, knows how to do this. Khalees, a little nervous, getting panicky with the phone. The technology can freak some people out.
Yes, and technology is like, there's a whole range of phones that we all have, right? So we made sure that we could streamline these thanks to Eggtooth Productions, because that way it's an equitable experience, right? Everyone's dealing with the same technology, which feels like it's been useful.
Ali Ross, give me your take on this whole situation.
Oh my gosh, we've been working on this for a long time, 1.5 years. It's actually been like amazing. It's such an amazing pleasure to see so many different people go through it and test it and give us their feedback, and then we would go back to the script and adjust and work on the tech more, and it's been like an incredible process, long form process. I am a dancer and a theater maker at heart, and I love writing, but I have really enjoyed writing into this script and actually having it connect with the architecture of one expansive place, coming back and seeing it over and over again in different ways, and then having that inspire my writing has been incredible. And then working with John, my collaborator, who is an old friend from grad school, has been really meaningful to reconnect post-pandemic.
And this is Act 1 of 3.
This is Act 1 of 3. Yeah, so this is like a drop in the water of the full vision. There's more in store.
I've been coming to Mass MoCA for, I think, over 20 years. And the Lewitt has been here virtually the whole time. When Pax, who I'm about to go through this with again, and I did this the first time, I saw the Salle Lewitt in ways that I have never seen it before, despite coming here for literally decades.
I think that's music to our ears and to the museums. I think one of the things Mass MoCA has been really interested in our dialogue together is how participants and audience members coming through these spaces, whether it's the first time or the 20th, can see them in a new and different light. And that was really our charge at the beginning, was relensing a building and creating an experience that started there rather than starting with a story and kind of injecting it into a building.
Let's get out of their way so that we don't distract them from the reality that they are experiencing right now as they have turned around from looking outside a window.
We're going to see their little promise, Monty. There it is. The pinky swear.
The first step is moments away. Say goodbye with only your eyes. It's time to leave.
There are intimate moments that happen with the person that you do this with, but it's not necessarily designed to be done with somebody you know. It could be done with somebody you absolutely don't know.
Actually, we had like a really cool experience. Last time we were here for the 25th anniversary of Mass MoCA, we had 2 strangers agree that they wanted to give it a go. We were really surprised, like it spoke to some kind of universal connection between folks.
It was too intimate for me to want to do with Khalees. That's why I totally pushed Enzo off on her.
There is a real sweetness to it. And I think one of our other missions was to create a very warm piece in a space that is so large and could use some warmth brought into it. We actually kind of rely on the connections between the 2 people to create some of the material for the show.
This is the part where I'm supposed to start recording my thoughts. We're switching voices because Monty's still in the middle of the exhibit. Enzo, how do you feel?
Wow, that was like crazy.
That was really neat.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in this museum so many times, but that was like, it made me look at it in a very different way.
Same, because, sorry, Solowit, I've never really cared for your exhibit. But until now, and this made me realize a lot of different things about the exhibit itself, not just hanging out with Enzo, which was also really cool. Coming around corners and finding where he was really, really neat.
Finding you was always like a nice surprise.
What has been the reaction of people who aren't radio personalities coming through and doing the exhibit? Don't laugh, Enzo.
We've had such a wide array of responses. People really are like very captivated by being led and also making choices. And I think that there's this like beautiful kind of challenge that they get to go on with another. And people have been pretty like excited about it overall, or just like move.
I feel like one of the things that we've seen pretty much every time someone comes out of the show is that they physically look different. Their shoulders are dropped, they're kind of like floating around, and whatever happened for their experience, there's something that you can see that apart from all the other museum goers that, oh, you just went on that show, didn't you?
I will say there was a moment in my track where Monty almost made me get off time because he needed to be on the elevator and I was going to a floor and he was going the opposite direction.
That's scoundrel.
And he's like, "Are you getting off here?" And I'm like, "No, get in." I'm about to miss the instructions. So I don't know if that's happened to other people.
There's something about staggering the entry that there's going to be a zigzag of presences sometimes,
Yeah.
and largely we found it's not a big issue. If anything, it's often an incidental, fun surprise.
So at the end of this, it says, "This is Act 1. When do you start exhibiting Act 2?
We are in the process of a lot of build for it. We're going to use much of the summer to finish it out. We're hoping to have something to share in the fall.
Is there going to be a point where you can do just a marathon of all 3 acts? I'm assuming that there's 3 acts because standard theater, I'm making some assumptions, but is there going to be an opportunity to do all of the acts at once coming into the museum later on when they're all done?
That's our hope. The fullest expression is all 3 acts, accompanied by live performers.
We really do see it as a piece of theater, so when you get to do all 3 acts, it's like getting to stay for the whole play.
Instead of just being a part of the workshop, which I'm happy to be a part of.
Yeah.
Enzo, would you want to do this again with another member of your family? I'm not a member of your family. You can, I'm like a test run.
Yeah, well, I also want to try the other set of headphones and see how that changes it to other
Oh, yeah.
paths.
Because you already know what the other one is kind of doing. So, yeah, that'll be something interesting to talk about when your dad gets back with your brother from their not-so-maiden voyage.
Though they are 2 separate walks. These are tandem walks, but what happens for each of you, you'll have lots to talk about that the other did not have.
Your one complete act.
I have now done the Ali Ross part and the John Bechtold part, as has my 11-year-old Pax. What was your take?
I thought it was awesome. It's like kind of scary how it lines up so well.
When I did it the first time, I was racked with sobs and unable to speak to you because I was just so emotionally moved by it. This time I just began by crying and just kind of cried a little bit
You got it out of the way, that's
the
good.
whole time. Yeah, so it is a powerful, emotional, and spiritual experience. And I think that it's like a guided meditation of Mass MoCA. You are meditating with this building and this campus and this land. And when I did it the first time, I was looking at the Lewitts, pieces of art that I've seen for 20 years over and over and over again in a completely new light. And I saw movement in the Lewitt paintings themselves. They breathe. They literally breathe. I can see them breathing. I saw shapes and faces come out of them in ways that were incredible, and I don't do drugs. So this is really an incredible way to experience this museum, I think.
We're really glad to hear that. I think we really see the museum and the campus as a subject and not an object, and that means while you have another human companion with you on this show, you also have this much larger companion that's with you the whole time as well.
Thanks so much to John Bechtold and Ali Ross for letting us participate in Where I End and You Begin, an intimate, immersive audio adventure for two people, co-produced by Eggtooth Productions and Mass Mocha. You can follow Mass Mocha on social media to find out about the next time the piece will run and experience it for yourself, although it'll be a little different since you won't have as many people running around for Solid Sound.
But they do run it during festivals, so
They do.
maybe not quite that many. But
Yeah.
And thanks to Sam Perry for sending along that music from it as well. Later in the show, another incredible theater experience buried even further into the hills. We'll talk with playwright and actor Jay Sefton about his deeply personal, disturbing, and we are told somehow hilarious production Unreconciled, running now at Chester Theater Company.
But up next, Space Legos, Hampshire College's Dr. Salman Hameed on how Legos may make up your future Martian home.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, offering co-op advantage checking with cash back on all purchases, plus secure debit card controls, all from the UMass 5 mobile banking app. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Time for some more kitchen table astronomy with Hampshire College astronomer Dr. Salman Hameed at your Amherst kitchen table. Salman Hameed, you were at Solid Sound on Friday night.
Amazing. Watched Wilco, and they did deep cuts.
Yeah.
And those were really interesting and really wonderful. It's always great to see live music, first of all, but it's always greater to see Wilco doing live music. So no, it was just a wonderful experience. How was yours?
It was great. We broadcast it, which was a lot of fun. And if you want to relive that experience, we are streaming the Wilco set and the Jason Isbell set at nepm.org for at least a week. So you can go and relive that experience. And I know it wasn't your first Solid Sound, Salman Hameed, so I got you this pin that says, "Not my first Solid Sound."
Yes, thank you so much.
They gave me a fill-in-the-blank one where I got to write 8th. Like, it was my 8th. I've been to all the Solid Sounds, so that was really, but I know it wasn't your first because I've been there with you before.
That is correct. No, it was a lot of fun and family event. So I went with my family as well. And the weather was perfect.
Yeah.
No mosquitoes, not too cold, not too hot, and a great drum solo.
Oh, totally. Glenn Cochie's drum solo, something else. But we're not here to talk about Wilco. There's been too much Wilco talk on these airwaves. We're going to talk about turning on a quasar in the Milky Way?
Not in the Milky Way, but you know that, and we have talked many times here, that pretty much in the centers of all galaxies, of most galaxies that are big, like the Milky Way galaxy, there is a supermassive black hole. That is a black hole of the mass tens of millions of times, and it can go as big as 1 billion times or so the mass of the sun. So you have these massive, supermassive black holes at the center.
Which kind of hold the whole thing together, right? The whole galaxy together in some ways?
Not really, because it's the dark matter that actually holds it. The black holes compared to the size of the galaxy. So, for example, for the Milky Way, there are a few 100 billion stars, so with a B, and the black hole is a few million times the mass of our sun, so our star in that context. So it's not as big compared to the rest of the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Nevertheless, these supermassive black holes are the ones that can produce a lot of energy. And that's how we know actually that they exist. And in fact, when material falls into them. So again, this is one of the questions that always come out, that, hey, it's a black hole, nothing can escape from it. That is correct. But if you have material around it, it usually forms an accretion disk of material. Before going into the black hole, this material is sped up because there is so much gravity nearby that the material is traveling almost close to the speed of light, and the friction that it causes. And again, so it's spiraling in, and the material, these particles, they are traveling extremely fast, and they are rubbing against each other as well, and that is producing heat, energy, and that is oftentimes what we see around it. And in fact, if you want the most efficient way of creating energy, some might say, hey, nuclear fusion, right? Where you take 4 hydrogen atoms, fuse them into helium. This is called hydrogen fusion. And a little bit of mass that is left over, E equals mc squared, the Einstein's equation. Well, that's a lot of mass that you can create. So right now we think that hydrogen fusion is the most efficient way.
A lot of energy you create.
To create energy. How much mass you take and how much energy out of it would be. Actually, it's not. It actually is 7% efficient with the hydrogen fusion. Supermassive black holes, accretion disk around that, the efficiency is around 50%. Except that in order to use that, you need to create a supermassive black hole and you need to figure out a way to harness that energy. My point is that these are amazingly strange objects, but they produce energy not from inside the black hole, but from the material that is around it. Now, Milky Way black hole is actually what we would call quiescent. It's actually not very active, meaning to say not much material is falling into it. When a lot of material is falling into it, we call those active galactic nuclei because these are in the nucleus of galaxy. And they are active and they are in the centers of galaxies, and hence the name AGN, or active galactic nuclei. Now, as I mentioned, something like the Milky Way, the supermassive black hole at the center is not very active. And then there are other galaxies, and you can go up to extremely active galaxies. Some are called quasars, where they are so bright that they outshine the entire galaxy. You only see the center. And so those are strange things because the center is so active that it is outshining the brightness of a few 100 billion stars. Now, what astronomers have recently found, so this is a galaxy, again, name doesn't matter, but if you are a name nerd, it would be SDSS 1335 plus 0728. Basically,
Creative.
This is Sloan Digital Sky Survey, and rest of it has the coordinates in the sky. So this is a pretty unremarkable galaxy, and it was observed in 2019 to see that the center suddenly got really bright. And occasionally, astronomers have found these type of events happening. For example, if the supermassive black hole swallows up a star, or some bigger chunk, a cloud that it swallows up, suddenly you see a brightness. Except that you expect when swallowing up a star, it's called tidal disruption event because the black hole basically disrupts that star, tidally rips it apart, and then the material as it spins around the disk, it gets heated up, and that's what you see. But in those cases, the brightness goes down after a few days, few weeks, or at the maximum a few 100 days. But in this particular case, it has been 4 years and it is still bright. And in fact, the way it has brightened up and in the wavelengths it is shining really bright compared to before, that suggests that somehow the center of this galaxy, the supermassive black hole, was inactive, was not active, and now it has been switched on.
So we've watched this galaxy turn on its quasar in the middle of it?
Yeah, so I wouldn't call it quasar because that's a sort of a really big version of it. But yeah, you can think about it as that its nucleus has become active, its supermassive black hole has become active, or this galaxy is now what we would characterize as an active galactic nuclei, an AGN.
So astronomers have seen these AGNs, these active galactic nuclei, observed in the universe, but they had already been on. This is the first time we've seen one that was not on, that's now on.
Right. I mean, just think about it. You have these things happening on the scales of hundreds of thousands or billions of years in general. That you have astronomers watch these galaxies. But here we have seen a galaxy switching on whatever happened. And actually, it's unclear exactly what happened because you have oftentimes material around it, like near our black hole as well, but the material has to start falling into it in a large quantity. So then it stays there, it's constant stream of that material. So you have seen the image of the accretion disk of the supermassive black hole, the one around the big image that had come up with.
A couple of years ago, UMass Amherst astronomers were a big part of imaging this first ever black hole.
And that was the shadow of the black hole. So that was the event horizon.
Yeah, astronomers get mad if you say, I saw a picture of the black hole. You didn't. You can't see a picture of a black hole. You saw the accretion disk around the black hole.
And in this particular case, it was also the shadow because you could see sort of light missing from it. That's what we were seeing. So even further in to just from the accretion disk. And so that is a case where the central component of the black hole in that particular image was actually active. Now, they also have an image in that sense of the shadow of the Milky Way, the supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way. But it's a relatively quieter place. in this case, the one that astronomers imaged in 2019, and they have been constantly observing it, they found that it went from being relatively quiet to being active. What happened? We don't know. That's what people are trying to figure out. What triggered this thing? What triggered the material from the accretion disk to constantly stream into the black hole compared to before?
I think that the fact that it's trash day in Amherst is a microcosm for what's happening. So as it was quiet while we were sitting at your Amherst kitchen table, all of a sudden the trash truck has come to pick up the recycling. The trash truck is like the supermassive black hole picking up all this material and dumping it into itself, and now all of a sudden we can see it. And there it goes down the street.
I wish it was a black hole that we could put in the trash. Unfortunately, that goes in somewhere, and then it still is part of the problem of our crisis on our planet. So I wish there was a black hole that you could just dump all of our trash and we would never see it again. Unfortunately, that is not the case. But yes, at least we have our trash.
I think that's true. And it is amazing that scientists have seen this turn on. When they have observed it in the past, could have been burning for thousands and millions, if not billions of years that they've seen before.
And it's also possible that it may have been active before. And then it went quiet, and now it is active again. So this is a really interesting case where astronomers can actually monitor that, and it tells us about something potentially what is happening at the center of our own galaxy. People expect, hey, maybe our black hole is going to start sort of like, doing some interesting stuff as well, but we don't know.
Tying it back into Wilco, it was at one point a bull black nova, and now it's a hot sun with a cool shroud from the new EP.
The new EP is great, and I am sad they did not play a single song from it, at least on Friday. Did they play it on Saturday?
I think they played one on Saturday, yeah.
And I'm livid because of that.
Hot sun. Wilco actually did 2 songs from the new EP Saturday night. And again, you can stream both the Wilco Deep Cut set and the Jason Isbell and the 400-unit set by heading over to our page at nepm.org.
There's set lists and everything, and not to point out an obvious, not so obvious joke, but it's a joke because one of the tracks on that EP is Livid.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's why he was livid.
You can listen to those streams through July 8th, so go listen to that after today's show and after. But right now, it's time to meet one of our soon-to-be citizens and learn more details about the process they must endure to become so with folks from Center for New Americans who are hosting their annual naturalization ceremony this Thursday in Northampton.
That's coming up. You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, offering solar options, energy security, and solutions for the local community. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. I'm Monty Belmonte.
And I'm Khalees Smith. The Chester Theater Company and the self-proclaimed Gem of the Valley, Chester, Massachusetts, produces contemporary professional equity theater in an intimate setting that is off the beaten path. They aim to create community and offer audiences fresh perspectives on vital issues. Their mission states that they are committed to theater as a means to explore and celebrate our shared humanity.
Currently running at the Chester Theater is the play Unreconciled, written by and starring Jay Sefton. Trigger warning, Unreconciled is the true story of an adolescent actor cast as Jesus in a play directed by a pedophile priest. The play chronicles a survivor's journey as he confronts his past and discovers the courage to use his voice and redefine what reconciliation means. Jay Sefton joins us now, but first, I will read an email that I got today. Dear Monty, Jay Sefton's Unreconciled played to another full house at Chester today. His development of his performance from when Joyce and I first came to know his script, and then his enactment of its stunning as it is ongoing collaboration with director James Barry, co-artistic director of Chester Theater, and his sound and lighting design team, and his remarkable stage manager, who's virtually an orchestra conductor as Jay performs.
The panel afterwards with journalist Nancy Cohen and 2 members of Bishops Accountable and James Barry was itself a phenomenon, attended by more audience members than usual who chose to stay for a post-performance discussion. Nancy made clear that Massachusetts, like Pennsylvania, is among the 26 U.S. states whose Catholic Church is actively stonewalling all attempts to reform state limits on children now grown being able to launch lawsuits and prosecution of child-abusing priests. Much legal documentation of this abuse remains under locked up. under lock and key or sealed, away from public knowledge.
Jay and his wife, Melanie Flynn, are among the kindest, warmest friends we've ever known, and I so hope you and Jay get to see each other's engaging qualities within the time you spend together at your NEPM studios. I hope, too, that you and Melissa, my wife, get to see his performance. His shaping of his material and his control and skill in performing it is astonishing. From the outset of his work on the performance and production, I feel how he is taking care of his audience every bit as much as we'd expect the opposite from such an experience as he imparts. With excitement and love, Lenny. Written by none other than Leonard Berkman, the longtime and distinguished professor of theater at Smith College and a dear friend of mine. We spoke about Leonard Berkman before, Nancy, but I didn't want to drop it on you that he had written this beautiful letter that I think sums up what happened last night for so many different people. But you had a question, Nancy Cohen, specifically about Leonard Berkman and its relationship to this play.
Yeah, I got to meet Len yesterday for the first time. He is a much-loved theater professor and highly respected theater professor at Smith College. My students have written about him. I've never met him. So I got to meet him yesterday and his wife. And he told me that Jay's play was first performed in his living room. James Barry, who's directing it at the Chester Theater, was present. I think Jay can tell us a little bit about the play at that point. But I just wanted to ask you, Jay, it seems to me that you performed it for the first time in Len Berkman's living room.
In Amherst, Massachusetts.
Thank you. The play was at Chester Theater last year. It's at Chester Theater this year. I saw it performed in East Hampton last year. Mm-hmm. What impact has Western Mass had on nurturing your work?
Because the play is set in Philadelphia.
Correct. And the community out here is amazing. And, you know, Len Berkman and his wife Joyce kind of sit at the top of that amazing community and spread love kind of wherever they go. But, you know, I spent some time in Los Angeles where it is very hard to get people to come see. You know, you cast lots of actors in shows because hopefully they'll have friends that will fill the theater. But out here, that is not the problem. People come to see theater. Things are sold out, and it's been amazing to move out here. My wife and I didn't know anyone when we moved out here, and we did a one-day, 24-hour theater festival to get to know people. And that is how it started. And that's they've been amazing at embracing this work and giving it homes to the East Hampton was some workshop productions that was part of a grant from the City Space, Pay It Forward. So I applied for the grant and got to go in there and do it for free and included a stipend. And it's amazing out here.
Were you in the first year or the second year? Because that program's only been happening for 3 years. This is the third one that it happened.
So last year.
So it was last year.
So the second cohort of folks that got that grant. Very cool.
Yes.
I know we're going to ask you more about the subject matter itself, but I have questions about like theater production because Monty and I both have done quite a bit of theater, and one person shows fascinate me, especially with you coming from LA. Like, are there aspects of this that were easier to create while making it a one-person play as opposed to making it a casted play?
Definitely. There are no rehearsal schedules to coordinate at all, basically. I'm either free or I'm not, and I would sit in my basement and run lines. And so, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's easier, and that is a thing, too, you know, I can travel with it by myself.
You know, Jay plays many different characters in the play. He plays the nun that was his nun and teacher. He plays the priest who a grand jury said was engaged in depraved and sadistic behavior. He plays other kids in the class. He plays the head of the Reconciliation Commission, and he plays his own father and his own mother as they were coming to terms with the abuse that their son experienced. The co-writer of the play is Mark Basquill. He's a psychiatrist. He's also a survivor. And he said to me, when one family member is hurt, other family members are hurt as well. What is it like for you to play your father and your mother working through these issues?
From a theatrical standpoint, it's fun. I've done imitations. You know, I've been doing an impression of my dad for a really long time, and So
he also plays the voice inside his head. The voice inside Jay's head, yeah.
Yes.
I heard a little clip of that from Nancy Cohen's excellent reportage from last year in the East, the City Space production. And yeah, I appreciate the accent of that person, but don't use any of his language.
Well, no, I was my wife and I were listening to that as it aired. I was like, "Ooh, they've never had to use the bleep button so many times over there." Yeah, it's a little bit of pride and a little bit of embarrassment all wrapped up. Yeah, from a theater standpoint, it is fun playing all these people and doing the switches and working with Mark. So Mark, our collaboration, Mark Basquill and I, the collaboration was really interesting. And he came to me one day and he said, "I'm going to apologize up front. I've written 3 monologues for your dad." And I was like, "Wow, okay." And they were beautiful. And then I kind of took them and took some of and ran it through the impression of my dad and changed how my dad spoke and some of the tics, the language tics that he would have. And I kind of love that there's a little bit of distance in there too, that I didn't write these words. I filled it in, but Mark wrote these and they were amazingly close to like how my dad was. And yeah, so it's been really nice and I feel like my dad died in 2012, and so he feels close, and I feel closer to him in some ways than I did when he was here.
What about your mom? Playing your mom?
Also, an impression that I had in my repertoire. I don't know that I've done that impression for her as many times as or anybody else, but that's. Theatrically fun to do as well.
Even in 2 years of running the show, not as many times.
Yeah, has your mom seen the show?
She has not. No, she still lives in Philadelphia, and I have not brought the show down to Philadelphia, so she has not.
We're speaking with playwright and actor Jay Sefton, whose play Unreconciled is currently at Chester Theater. Nancy Cohen is a reporter who's been covering the issues of clergy sexual abuse for years now and has covered this particular production and was there for a panel discussion last night. When did you start writing this play? And was it after you went through the process with the Catholic Church of what they wanted you to do? First, maybe we'll start there. Tell us how it happened, how it was reported, and what the church did in response to the abuse that you suffered at their hands.
So there was a grand jury report in Philadelphia that was released in 2005. The priest who is in my play, who abused me, was in that grand jury report. He was defrocked 2 years later in 2007. I was living in Los Angeles, didn't really know that I wasn't following it closely. I didn't follow. I knew about Spotlight, but didn't follow it. So
Spotlight is the Boston Globe reportage that opened up this case in Massachusetts in particular.
Yes. And so in 2007, I received an email from my dad about Father Smith being defrocked. And at the bottom, there was a number to call the Victims Assistance Coordinator. And the story that's in the article was my story. Now, other kids played Jesus, so it was somebody else that testified for the 2005 grand jury report, but nobody reached out from the Catholic Church to me and said, "Hey, we know that this happened. Would you like to?" So it was my dad sending it to me, and then I called, and they said that they would cover therapy, so I did therapy for a while. And then in 2018, at that point, my wife and I are living in East Hampton. A letter just shows up in the mail, unannounced, saying that there's an independent reconciliation and reparations program that's been put together by the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, where I think there were 352 envelopes sent out. So these are people that are on their radar. I was on their radar now because I was getting therapy paid for by the church. And it was a program to go through for reparations. And I went through the program and was less than pleased with how it shaped up and wrote an op-ed. And that was kind of the first time I didn't think anything would happen with this op-ed. My wife, Melanie Flynn, is a wonderful writer, and so I wrote my stuff then, and she helped me shape it. And we put it out there. And a newspaper in Harrisburg picked it up. And my heart starts pounding at that point because I never really, I didn't have a voice in any of this. And then it starts to get shared online a little bit, and then other survivors start contacting me because I'm fairly easy to find online through my therapy website. So at this point, I'm a therapist now. And that's how Mark Basquill got in touch with me and other people. And I start having conversations about this program and decide I'm just going to be as transparent as possible about the program with whoever contacts me. And then there's a lot of political theater that goes on in Harrisburg where since 2005 there's always been a recommendation, very clear, to open a 2-year window for people whose statute of limitations have run out can bring their cases to court. It's never gotten passed in Pennsylvania, and there's always been ridiculous theater of politicians getting lobbied by the church, blocking the vote. Oh, we've got full support. The state senator won't bring it to a vote. So that's going on. And then it hits a pitch in 2021. And I write another op-ed, and it gets published. And then that state senator, it got published in a Pittsburgh paper, and that state senator writes one in response to mine, which blew my mind that now I'm in some sort of argument and through a newspaper. And that's when I thought I was so filled with rage. I was like, I don't know what to do with this. And I started writing the solo show.
That's a good place to take a little break. We're speaking with Jay Sefton, who has written or co-written the play Unreconciled, which is running now through the weekend at the Chester Theater Company in Chester. We're also speaking with NEPM's own Nancy Cohen, who's been covering some of the ridiculous political theater surrounding this issue in Massachusetts. The play is ridiculously good theater from what we hear, so hopefully you'll stick around and hear more about it in just a little bit.
You're listening to The Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Honey, you can come by anything.
Welcome back to The Fabulous 413. We are here with Jay Sefton, who's a playwright and actor behind the show Unreconciled, going through this weekend at Chester Theater Company. And Nancy, you were part of a panel discussion that was part of that production after the play yesterday. You were inspired by the Spotlight piece that we mentioned in the Boston Globe and have been reporting on this issue here locally. We've heard a lot about what's gone on in the Boston Archdiocese, but what has gone on more locally from what you've covered over the years?
Well, quick history. 21 years ago this month, the Massachusetts Attorney General at the time, Thomas Riley, published a report about sexual abuse of children at the Boston Archdiocese. It was after the Spotlight reporting at the Globe. That was 21 years ago, July. Last July, I filed a story about some things that I discovered, which is that when Maura Healey was the Attorney General, she started an investigation into child sexual abuse at the Worcester, Springfield, and Fall River Diocese, the rest of the diocese in the state. I spoke to survivors who talked with her and advocates, talked with her team and advocates, and nailed it down. Her office has declined to comment. The Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, has declined to comment. But this investigation has started but has never been published. And survivors are asking, why isn't it getting published? It's very important, as I understand it from survivors, that these investigations do become public, that it helps validate people's experiences, to see in print the name of the priest who abused them. It's validating if a survivor has shared these stories with family members and maybe the family members don't believe them. You know, priests are often highly regarded in Catholic families, so it's really important to get these stories made public.
I'm going to talk about the actual production that's happening in Chester that people can see this through this weekend. You did it in East Hampton before, and now you're on a slightly larger, slightly more like effort theater. What's changed in the production since its first run to this run?
The biggest thing is we've got an amazing design team and the full weight of a theater company putting it in their season. So structurally, the play has remained pretty close to the first time of doing it in Chester, but also just getting it in front of audiences. I think I can say from me being up on stage, my comfort, like that first night in Chester was like, I don't even know if I really remember what happened on stage. Then it's over. And so now I'm starting to live in it a little bit more, and that's been hugely helpful over the year to have all these other. And then what's really different here is just this amazing design team at Chester and the time to rehearse and.
Yeah. I heard from Nancy Cohen that there were video elements that got brought into the current production that weren't necessarily there in the East Hampton production.
Yes. There's so I've got actual footage from the Passion Play in 1985, and then
which you were in, starring as Jesus,
yes.
and then subsequently abused.
Yes.
The audience gets to see Jay as a middle schooler.
Yep.
In the play.
Yeah, and some of the other stuff is there's a Philadelphia Eagles game that was particularly meaningful that it made its way in. I know I didn't want to bring that up, but here we are.
It's okay. It's fine.
Nancy, you had a great question about what goes through Jay's head during this production.
Yeah, well, so yesterday at the performance, an audience member asked Jay if he was triggered when he was performing. And you said no, not at all. And I'm wondering if, you're really grappling with the writing, performing this over and over, whether it's what impact it has had on you in terms of, healing from your experience.
Well, and this is a thing that I would like to particularly say thank you to you for covering the material in a very early stage, as it seems to be gathering some acceptance and stuff. It's not the easiest thing in the world to say, I got a solo show about clergy abuse. You want to come? And but here we are. And so getting my voice out there is helpful and in the healing of it, and then having people listen and respond and say yes, because you get used to hearing a lot of no's as an actor, as a playwright, and as a survivor, and particularly the situation we talked about in Pennsylvania, a lot of no's. So when people like you have me on the show here and say yes, and when you come and cover it and say yes, that's helpful.
I know that you'd like to take this back to Philadelphia and put it on. Are there further changes that you think that you would like to make either to the written material itself or the production in putting it on in Philadelphia should you get the chance?
Right now, I'm real happy with what's going on at Chester. And we'll see,
It's a great theater company. It's a wonderful place to perform. It's in the little town hall there in that beautiful... Is it technically a hill town? I think it's like the corner of Hampshire County or Hamden.
Hamden. No. It's in Hamden.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a wonderful place to see theater. They've got other productions happening this summer as well, but Unreconciled is there through the end of this weekend. Jay Sefton is the co-writer and star of Unreconciled, and Nancy Cohen is our star in the NEPM news department, who was part of the Q&A after. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Tomorrow on the Fabulous 413, we'll speak with Angela Park from 52 Sumner and Mark Auerbach from Mosso about the collaboration between a brand new music venue that's taken over a church in Springfield and the Springfield Chamber Players for the upcoming season.
And local music ingenue Hannah Mohan, formerly of Topsy and the Kids, has a solo album coming out this Friday. We'll talk with her about her evolving style and hear her play accordion before you can see her perform at the newly revamped Iron Horse on this Friday.
I'm Monty Belmonte.
I'm Khalees Smith. We will see you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.